The year Zhou hated me the most. He lost his memory. I took him home with me. He clung to me like a devoted puppy. He'd pull me into damp alleyways for kisses and embraces until we were drenched in sweat, ears flushed red. He'd grumble with a mix of embarrassment and frustration. Just how much did I like you before I lost my memory? Why can't I help myself the moment I see you? Just before our wedding, Sean regained his memories. He remembered his undying old flame and recalled that I was the malicious childhood friend he'd long despised. In an instant, he transformed back into the aloof heir of a wealthy family. When others asked if 3 years of shared hardship meant nothing to him, Sean's expression turned icy as he replied indifferently, "A pitiful lowlife like her isn't worthy of my attention." Yet the moment his eyes landed on me holding another man's arm, he shattered his wine glass. Sean went to the city to pick up the wedding dress and returned with a girl by his side, Claire Tao, his old flame from his youth. The girl was dressed head to toe in luxury, her radiantly beautiful face making the dilapidated wooden shack seem 3 times brighter. "Ajui, have you been living in a place like this for the past 3 years?" Her face was full of heartache. A trash bin made from plastic bottles, a shoe cabinet folded from cardboard boxes. The furnishings were cheap and crude. Only the colorful little boxes scattered on the nightstand were all high-end goods. Claire Tao's expression changed. Naturally, Shanjo saw them too, his eyelashes trembling slightly. When he looked at me again, the obsessive infatuation that had grown fervent over 3 years was gone from his eyes. They were cold and heavy as ice. He had regained his memories, remembering how I had deceived and toyed with him for 3 whole years, from his emotions to his body. How could the once high and mighty young master Zhou endure such humiliation? The disgust in his eyes deepened, and he gritted his teeth, saying, "Let's go. Leave her here to fend for herself." Claire Tao cast a pitying glance my way. "Sister, come back with us and apologize to everyone." Her face was full of sincerity, as if she had no idea what I would face upon returning. "All right," I smiled. "I'll go back with you." Taken aback by my agreement, Claire Tao's expression froze. The air grew deathly still, as if frozen solid. Shanzhou fixed his gaze on me for a long moment, his thin lips curling into a cold smirk. "What, 3 years wasn't enough time in my bed? Did you really think I'd ever want you?" His mocking tone was like a blade sheathed in frost, cutting deep with effortless cruelty. I suddenly remember the Shanzhou from not long ago, sticky and clingy like a dog, pestering me no matter how I tried to push him away. I pulled a medical report from my bag. "Sean, I'm pregnant." His face paled in shock, and he grabbed my wrist fiercely. I was the fake heiress of the Tao family. After the real heiress, Claire Tao, returned, I made a mistake and was driven out by my adoptive parents. I was like a stray dog with no home. Later, by the seaside, I found Shanzhou, who was even more pitiful than I was. I casually tossed him a bag of biscuits and half a bottle of water, and he followed me with longing eyes all the way. I got angry. "You're the eldest young master of the Zhou family. If you want to find your memories, go back to Capital City." Not looking for memories. His lips were parched. Clutching the water bottle I gave him, reluctant to drink. "Don't want to find memories. Then what do you want?" "Want to follow you," he pleaded cautiously. "Is that okay?" I rolled my eyes. They say, after a major trauma, people might selectively forget some things. Not sure what Shanzhou's situation is. I stopped paying attention to him, yet he stuck by me like a loyal dog, running around to build me a small cabin, taking odd jobs all over town to buy pretty dresses for me. For a whole year, the delicate young master tanned, gaining a touch of rugged, muscular charm. When he stared at me pitifully, his gaze burned with intensity. The first time we kissed by the sea, I grabbed his ear. "Shanzhou, when you regain your memory, you'll absolutely despise me." "Why?" I grinned mischievously. "Because you used to hate me the most." Shanzhou licked his glistening lips and leaned closer. He obediently nuzzled his head against my neck. "Won't happen," he murmured, his voice thick with unspoken desire. Liked you desperately from the very first moment I saw you." I sneered inwardly. counting on my fingers, waiting to see Shanzhou fly into a rage once his memory returned. 3 years. The time came neither too quickly nor too slowly. I returned to the Tao family after more than 3 years away. My adoptive parents, who had always been cold in my memory, flew into a rage and slapped me hard across the face. You little wretch, after raising you for over a decade, we've nurtured nothing but an ungrateful snake. Shameless, even trying to steal your sister's fiancé. I was shoved to the ground. Claire Tao stood watching for a long while before calmly intervening. Mom, Dad, please don't be angry. My sister is still carrying a child in her womb. My adoptive parents' fury only intensified, but perhaps wary that the child in my belly was, after all, a Zhou family heir. They withdrew the foot aimed to kick me. With such lowly blood running through your veins, no wonder you act so despicably. My adoptive parents left in a huff. Claire Tao forced a faint smile. Sister, you'll get rid of the child, right? I gently touched my flat abdomen, raised my brows, and smiled at her. What are you afraid of? Afraid I'll steal your position as the Zhou family's madam? Claire Tao bit her lip, shaking her head in flustered helplessness. Sister, I'm only thinking of what's best for you. You know how much Sway despises you. I slowly rose to my feet and glanced up toward the second floor. After Claire Tao was recognized by the Tao family, she moved into the largest, sunniest room on the second floor. Meanwhile, my old room became a storage space, filled with the luxury items Claire Tao no longer wanted. The new room was the cramped nanny's quarters on the first floor. The Tao family intended this as an insult, but they probably didn't realize that a lowly commoner like me, too poor to afford any pride, couldn't even buy a single inch of this nanny's room. I sat dazed on the single bed for a while when my phone suddenly buzzed with several messages. It was the chat group of Capital City Second Generation Elites. I wasn't originally part of it and didn't know them well. Claire Tao had added me to the group. Back when she had just returned to the Tao family, she quickly became close with peers in their circle, forming tight bonds. She tagged each of the rich heirs in the group. Arya Tao is my sister. None of you are allowed to bully her, okay? The heirs praised her for being beautiful and kind-hearted, having endured years of hardship, yet still showing tolerance toward me, the fake heiress who had taken her place. Only Shanzhou disdainfully replied, she's as skinny as a praying mantis. Who'd even want to bully her? With young Master Zhou having spoken, naturally, no one dared to contradict him. They all said they wouldn't stoop to my level. That puts my mind at ease. Thank you all for accepting my sister. After Shanzhou went missing, I absent-mindedly glanced at the group chat. Mostly, it was messages from the second generation rich kids organizing parties for eating, drinking, and having fun. Suddenly, a string of messages tagging me popped up. You really have some nerve. Claire treats you like a sister, and you sneak off with her fiancé without a word? Stardome Rooftop. You have half an hour to get your ass over here. If you don't kneel and apologize, don't even think about surviving in Capital City from now on. These high and mighty young masters could crush someone's throat with just a few words. When I arrived by taxi, Claire Tao was surrounded like the center of attention, flanked by several people. When they saw me, fury blazed in their eyes. There was a swimming pool on the Stardome Rooftop. Usually, it was a playground for the second generation rich during their leisure time. My head was forced down, again and again, into the icy pool water. The suffocating sensation of drowning washed over me. The harsh, mocking laughter was even more biting than the pool water. How shameless can you be? You're the one who stole Qingyue's 18 years of luxury, and now you even want to take her fiancé? That desperate for men? Should I find a few to keep you company tonight? Once again, my scalp was yanked back. I gripped the railing tightly, tilting my head up to speak each word deliberately. Is Shanzhou really her fiancé? My voice was neither loud nor soft, but I was certain Shanzhou, who had just reached the top floor, must have heard it. Shit, the man cursed and retracted his hand. The group glanced at Shanzhou by the doorway, their eyes flickering with unease. My hair was disheveled, my clothes soaked as I collapsed by the poolside. I looked as wretched as a drowned ghost. Ryan Zheng spoke sheepishly. Sean, this girl deceived you for 3 years. We're just teaching her a lesson for you. Sean Zhou gave a non-committal hum, leaning against the doorframe. He raised an eyebrow lazily at Ryan Zheng. Go on. Ryan Zheng froze for a second, then sneered and lifted my chin roughly. Get some self-awareness. In Sean's eyes, you're nothing but a... Before he could finish, he was sent flying in a parabolic arc into the swimming pool. Sean Zhou withdrew his foot. He glanced down at me with a detached gaze. Why did you come here? I forced a smile. Because I knew you'd come. Sean, I wanted to see you. Sean let out a scornful laugh. Pretty pathetic. He took Claire Tao's hand, who looked uneasy, tilted his chin at me, and spoke as if granting a favor. Get lost. I returned to the servants' quarters at the Tao family, clutching the damp blanket, drifting in and out of nightmares. I dreamed of my childhood. From the moment I became aware, my parents were always distant. I chalked it up to them being busy with work. When I was 9, they took me to the Zhou family. Everyone knew the young master of the Zhou family had a terrible temper. Be good, listen well, and play nicely with Sean. Just having them gently stroke my hair made me feel incredibly happy. At first, I was Sean Zhou's plaything, but no matter how harshly he treated me, I would just blankly follow behind him. Why don't you cry? Tisich. Boring. Sean stopped teasing me. He even started protecting me at school. He didn't know. Unloved children don't have the right to cry. Sean and I became inseparable. I regularly reported Sean's preferences to my parents until they found their biological daughter, Claire Tao. My birth mother was an hourly worker living in an urban village, very poor. Claire Tao, raised by her, wore worn-out sportswear but had brilliantly bright eyes. People said I was lucky to have lived a privileged life for over a decade. But seeing Claire's vibrant and carefree spirit, something only nurtured by true protection, I secretly envied Claire. I thought, if only I hadn't been switched at birth. I felt ashamed of such shameless thoughts. I had wronged Claire Tao. My adoptive parents said they had feelings for me and that I could continue living with the Tao family. With the college entrance exam approaching, I wanted to wait until everything settled before mentioning my decision to return to my birth mother. But on the last day of the exam, she died. Claire Tao held me and wept uncontrollably. I'm sorry, sis, Mrs. Yang was hit by the car because she was protecting me. I watched her cry in silence. All the surging anguish turned into bewildered helplessness. During the 2 days of exams, my adoptive parents personally escorted Claire Tao to the test center, and my birth mother chose to ride dozens of kilometers to watch over her adoptive daughter. From beginning to end, I was the one who could be easily discarded. Only Sean Zhou tirelessly stayed by my side. During college, he would cross half the city every week to have meals with me. He'd gloomily order a table full of dishes and grit his teeth to threaten me. Arya Tao, if you dare lose even 1 more pound, just you wait. Back then, Sean Zhou's family went through a major crisis, and he himself was worn down to a shadow of his former self. Yet he still fussed endlessly over whether I'd missed even a single meal. A belated youthful infatuation suddenly bloomed. Then one day, Claire Tao hesitantly took my hand. Sis, there's something I must confess to you. I actually knew all along that I was our parents' biological child. Mom and Dad would watch me from the alley entrance every night after work. Any toy I wanted would somehow find its way into my hands within a week. Claire's eyes shone with the happiness of someone who'd been thoroughly pampered. I'm not an idiot. I just secretly got a paternity test and found out. But I don't blame our parents. They said switching us at birth and raising me in an ordinary family was deliberate to help develop resilience and make me a worthy successor. I listened in stunned silence, my heart gripped by an invisible fist. Breathing became difficult. My mind drifted to the past. Since first grade, I've had to wash my own clothes. 2 sets per season, worn in rotation for years, only replaced when they no longer fit. My parents said it was to instill frugality and independence in me. Claire Tao's world bloomed with flowers, while mine remained barren all year round. I thought it was fate or destiny. Turns out it was just a rich person's joke. Sis, Mrs. Yang asked me for one thing before she died. She begged me, for the sake of her raising me with all her heart for over a decade, to look after you more in the future. But why? I'm the daughter she raised for 18 years. How could she divide her love for me with someone else? I lifted my reddened eyes and met her helpless smile. Sis, you've already stolen Mrs. Yang's attention from me. Please stay away from Shan Zhou, won't you? He's the boyfriend my parents chose for me. The truth is a cage. I ran desperately outside and bumped into Shan Zhou just beyond the coffee shop. I never shed tears when my adoptive parents neglected me or when classmates bullied me. But now, I was crying so hard I could barely catch my breath. I grabbed Shan Zhou's arm, desperate to tell him everything. Then my gaze fell on the bouquet of roses he was holding. A small card read, "To Qinghua, with love." Hoarsely, I hesitated and asked, "You," he shrugged casually, "came to confess to your sister." All words stuck in my throat. I lowered my gaze and let go of his arm, my heart filled with despair. But I just couldn't accept it. Gritting my teeth, I blurted out the truth about how my adoptive parents had swapped our lives. Shan Zhou simply uttered an indifferent, "Oh, I've known all along." He even gave a helpless laugh and patted my head with his free hand. Silly, why else do you think they'd have been willing to send their daughter to be my playmate? At that moment, the hand that had been gripping my heart finally let go. Only dense holes remained, letting the wind seep through. So cold and painful, my fleeting youth ended at this moment. Life was left with nothing but desolation. I woke up burning with fever, having soaked in cold water during the day. My temperature soared to 39 degrees at night. I struggled to text Shan Zhou, "If you don't want your child to die, come quickly." I just started in 4 at the clinic. Through blurred vision, I saw Shan Zhou's panicked figure rushing toward me. When the doctor said it was just a cold from the chill, his expression turned grim. "Arya Tao, do you still think this is like when I had amnesia, ordering me around like a dog?" I gave him a weak smile. "But you still came. No one understands Shan Zhou better than I do. He doesn't love me, but raised in that kind of family, he dreams of being a good father." Stung by my smile, Shan averted his gaze. His face was dark with anger. "Don't think I can't deal with you." He suddenly gripped my chin firmly, his tone indifferent. "Listen clearly. I won't keep this child." I nodded perfunctorily. "Fine, just set a time, and I'll get rid of it immediately." Shan Zhou was left speechless. He lit a cigarette, then turned and stormed off in anger, as if his visit was only to confirm whether I was dead or not. Right after Shan left, Claire Tao pushed the door open and entered. I smiled and tugged at the coat draped over me. "See? Shan just put this on me." Claire's eyes instantly welled up with tears. She sobbed pitifully. "Sis, why do you have so little self-respect? Why must you steal my fiancé?" I watched her calmly, almost amused. "Tell me, are you really Shan's fiancé, or his brother's?" Shan had never been favored by his father since childhood. 3 years ago, after Mr. Zhou fully took control of the Zhou family, Shan's mother was forced to accept her husband's mistress and illegitimate son. The illegitimate son, merely half a year younger, became the heir recognized by Mr. Zhou. Shan Zhou's mother developed severe depression and soon passed away from an overdose of medication. In agony, Shan Zhou ran away from home and later inexplicably lost his memory. What did the Tao family do during this time? Claire Tao hastily became engaged to the illegitimate son. The chat group buzzed with excitement for a while because of this. Shan Zhou probably never knew that, while he was missing, his so-called friends are buddying up with the illegitimate son he despised most. They also enthusiastically and sincerely wished Claire Tao and his brother a happy union for 100 years. Not long ago, that good for nothing illegitimate son died in a racing accident, plunging off a cliff. Only then did Mr. Zhou remember his other son, who had been drifting outside. Coincidentally, Shan Zhou regained his memory, but he had unexpectedly forgotten this most painful chapter of his past entirely. Claire Tao widened her eyes, so flustered she even forgot to shed tears. "You want to tell Shan Zhou? He won't believe you." She stared at me intently, her eyes held deep-seated fear. I sighed softly. My kind, sweet sister, I just want you to help me find a job. Don't be nervous. I won't reveal this secret. Why would I say anything? I firmly believe that those who cast me into hell should themselves suffer the torment of scorching flames. 3 years ago, I kept hitting walls while job hunting. Later, I learned it was orchestrated by the Tao family, trying to leave me with no way to survive in Capital City. Now, with just a word from Claire Tao, I not only got a job at the Tao family's company, but also received an extra $6 million in my account. Hush money from Claire Tao. I'm quite satisfied, perhaps fearing complications. Claire Tao recently clung to Sean Zhou, and the Tao family seldom troubled me. Not long after, news came of Sean and Claire's engagement. I also received a package, an abortion appointment scheduled by Sean Zhou for me. I'll arrange for someone to accompany you during the procedure. After sending the text, Sean Zhou walked to the balcony and instinctively lit a cigarette. He couldn't suppress the restlessness in his chest. 3 years ago, his father's illegitimate son and mistress came to provoke them, sparking the most intense argument his parents had in years. His memories cut off abruptly after that. Sean only remembered waking up by the seaside and following Arya Tao ever since. He never expected that, in just these 3 short years, his mother would pass away from illness. His father, remorseful, cut ties with his mistress and sent the illegitimate son abroad to fend for himself. Sean remembered the day he returned. His father hugged him, weeping uncontrollably, blaming him for not coming back sooner. If only he had returned home earlier, perhaps his mother wouldn't have been driven to despair by his disappearance, ultimately dying of a broken heart. Sean clenched his fist, his previously sluggish thoughts suddenly churning with turmoil. Yes, why had he delayed his return for so long? Because of Arya Tao. Arya Tao had never told him that his mother was gravely ill, waiting for him to come home. If she had leaked even a hint of information back then, perhaps it wouldn't have led to today's situation. Reason told Sean Zhou that none of this was Arya Tao's fault. After all, over the past 3 years, Arya had told him countless times to go back to Capital City. He just hadn't listened. He shouldn't blame her. But someone had to pay for this tragedy. Crushing the cigarette, but under his foot, Sean Zhou pressed hard on his temples. He went to drink with friends to drown his sorrows. Claire Tao showed up too. Her dear, like eyes, gazed at him mistily. Ever since Sean had kicked Ryan Zheng last time, Ryan had been holding a grudge. It wasn't until they were several drinks in that he finally pouted unwillingly. Sean, have you really fallen for Arya Tao? Then what about Claire? The man next to him pinched Ryan's arm and said with a laugh, Arya's been following him around since they were kids. Sean's just being protective. What does that have to do with liking her? Sean's eyes darkened. He tilted his head back and hastily downed a glass of wine. Arya Tao disliked the taste of alcohol, so for 3 years he hadn't touched a drop. The burning sensation sliding down his throat seemed to remind Sean Zhou how absurdly he had lived these past 3 years. He had to admit, he had genuinely liked Arya Tao once. But this fondness had nothing to do with romantic love. He had merely seen her as a distraction, a plaything, who wouldn't adore a well-behaved, obedient doll. At best, Arya was just his favorite toy to fiddle with. An intense possessiveness wouldn't allow his toy to carry anyone else's scent. He wanted to keep her by his side, polished to perfection, forever pristine and beautiful. But what had he done after losing his memory? He had debased himself, chasing after Arya Tao like a fool. To please her, he was even willing to do such shameless things. The one in power had become the plaything. His and Arya's positions had reversed. A single smile from her, and his heart would melt into mush. Recalling how pathetically devoted he'd been during his amnesia, Sean Zhou felt a vein throbbing at his temple. A hand gently tugged at his sleeve. Sean, have you really fallen for Arya? Claire Tao's voice trembled with hurt, tears pattering down like rain. To hell with falling for her. Sean pulled her into his embrace. Her crying tore at his heart. Sean, it doesn't matter who you like. Just please don't like Arya, okay? She's not a good person. Have you forgotten all the things she did before? It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over Sean's head. He jolted awake to the truth. Arya was vile and shameless. Someone like her didn't deserve anyone's affection. Sean grew even more certain of the tangled emotions he felt toward Arya deep down. It was hatred, pure and absolute. Gently, Sean wiped away her tears. Then, he took out his phone and sent a text to Arya. After the surgery, I'll have someone take you back to town. I won't see you again after this. Right in front of Claire Tao, Sean-Jo blocked the contact. Claire Tao's tears turned to laughter as she nestled into his arms. Sean, you love children so much. Shall we have lots of babies together in the future? Sean stroked her hair, yet felt an inexplicable emptiness inside. Claire Tao came from a good family, radiant and elegant, with just the right touch of delicacy. She was the goddess for most guys in their circle. Most importantly, she shared his interests, as if Taylor, made by fate to be his perfect match. This flawless girl had waited faithfully for him for 3 years. He loved her. He ought to love her. He gently kissed the girl's cheek. Sure, sweetheart, Sean said tenderly. A flicker of irritation was swiftly suppressed. I joined the Tao family's company. With Claire Tao's influence, I was isolated by both superiors and colleagues. On the contrary, the cleaning department aunties were warm and welcoming. After a few interactions, I became a regular in their sunflower seed cracking sessions. I also ended up hearing plenty of juicy gossip about the company executives. After work, Aunt Wong and I were chatting while walking when suddenly my name was called from behind. The voice sounded somewhat familiar. I turned my head and met the clear, gentle eyes of a young man. He wore a simple white shirt with a black backpack, sitting on the sofa and looking up at me. His gaze was pure. Arya Tao. He tilted his head. Sis. Have you already forgotten me? My brain short-circuited for a moment. I was somewhat surprised. Aiden Bow? Back in high school, my adoptive parents found out that the young master of the Bow family had transferred to our school. Rumors said the young master had just lost a leg in a car accident and had become moody and unpredictable. My adoptive parents wanted to build good relations with the Bow family, so they ordered me to take good care of Aiden at school. I didn't dare disobey and approached Aiden with fear. But the boy turned out to be unexpectedly gentle. His temperament was far more docile than that prickly Sean-Jo. He shyly called me sister. Aiden both sat in a wheelchair, his pant legs hanging empty below the knees, drawing strange stares. On campus, odd looks could quickly escalate into bullying. I didn't want the hardships I'd endured to befall this well-behaved boy. Every 10-minute break between classes, I'd rush to the lower grades, even if it was just to say hello to Aiden. I wanted to show others that he had someone looking out for him. Sean-Jo got angry about it several times, accusing me of disloyalty. Then, later, that incident happened. It's been over 3 years since we last saw each other. That incident, I struggled to suppress the surge of emotions, forcing a smile. What brings you to Capital City? The young man smiled. I heard you were back, sister. So I came to try my luck. He suddenly stood up. I'd only ever seen him in a wheelchair as a boy. I hadn't realized how tall he'd grown. I couldn't hide my surprise as I glanced at his calf. Aiden Bow blinked with a smile. Sis, I have a prosthetic limb. Beneath his straight suit pants, one could faintly discern the firm, smooth muscle lines of his thigh. It's beautiful, I praised sincerely. When I looked up, my gaze collided with Sean-Jo standing at the doorway. He must have come to pick up his fiancée after work. Yet now he clenched his fists, his eyes cold and sharp as they fixed on me. Within seconds, he released his hands and turned away without a word. I withdrew my gaze and asked Aiden if he'd like to have dinner together. My relationship with Aiden Bow became familiar again, as if the 3-year gap between us had never existed. We tacitly avoided mentioning that past incident. Aiden now works at a research institute, apparently involved in some national confidential project. I didn't pry, though I was somewhat curious. Isn't Research Institute work extremely busy? How does he have time to ask me to dinner after work every day? It's manageable. The young man shook his head. I just transferred here for work and have no friends besides my sister. His tone was flat, yet his long lashes lowered, and the loneliness around him grew heavier. My heart felt like it was gently brushed by a tender sprout from a lonely vine. I recalled the Aiden Bow of the past. The Bow family never revealed Aiden's condition. The once treasured boy had become fragile like the most delicate porcelain. For some reason, Aiden didn't get a prosthetic limb and made no effort to hide it. In the height of summer, he wore shorts, his stump clearly exposed to the air. Curious, disgusted, and fearful glances came one after another. By then, we had known each other for nearly half a year. I found Aiden in the foul, smelling equipment room. His wheelchair was nowhere to be seen. He had fallen and was sitting on the floor. He lifted his pale face. "It's ugly, isn't it?" The muscles on his thigh had atrophied and shriveled, and his stump had become deformed. The cross section of his severed leg sprouted pink, fleshy overgrowth, worn bloody, and smeared with grimy dust. To call it beautiful would be a lie. I found the wheelchair and helped him sit down. From the effort, a faint blush tinged the boy's pale cheeks. "Aiden, you're really good looking. So, what if your leg is incomplete? It shouldn't be the reason you despise yourself. If anything, it makes your beauty more unique." Sitting motionless in the wheelchair, Aiden resembled a noble, exquisite ragdoll cat. I couldn't resist reaching out to ruffle his hair. A strand of his soft black hair stuck up adorably, and he stared at me, dazed, even more like a kitten now. "Is it really good looking?" he mumbled, his clear dark eyes fixed intently on me. "Better looking than Shanzhou." "What? Never mind." He pursed his lips. He seemed a bit dejected. After a moment, he lifted his head again, thick lashes drooping, trembling slightly. "You'll always be friends with me, right, sis?" The loneliness in his tone at that moment enveloped him like an impenetrable veil, making it hard to discern his expression. 3 years had transformed the youth too rapidly, like an oversized giant cat. Comparing our height difference, I helplessly rose on tiptoe. Just as I raised my hand, Aiden Bow obediently lowered his head. His carefully styled hair was tousled into a mess, guiltily hiding my hands behind my back. I coughed. "Let's go eat." Another day ended at work. The once gentle weather suddenly unleashed a torrential downpour. 20 minutes passed, and Aiden Bow still hadn't arrived. I was considering whether to cancel our planned dinner. A cold, mocking laugh came from behind. "What, got dumped by your new fling?" Lately, Shanzhou showed up daily after work to pick up Claire Tao. He always stared gloomily at me and Aiden Bow, but today was the first time he approached us with such open mockery. I found it utterly ridiculous. Didn't young Master Zhou say we'd never see each other again? Shanzhou stiffened for a moment. "I just can't stand watching you seduce other men while carrying my child. It's disgusting. For money, you'd even sink so low as to target a cripple, Arya Tao. Do people like you have no shame at all?" He gripped my wrist, his cutting words laced with deep, seated contempt. Such familiar phrasing. People like us. Over 3 years ago, he'd said those very words with a look of disappointment, shouting them at me in finality. The long, buried memory struck like an ice-coated dagger, slicing through raw flesh, its frigid edge screaming through every joint. To make up for their neglect of their biological daughter, my adoptive parents threw Claire Tao a lavish birthday banquet. Midway through, a servant said Aiden Bow was looking for me. I pushed open the lounge door and was met with the boy's stifled gasps. Aiden Bow had fallen from his wheelchair to the floor, his face flushed, eyes dazed, reaching out to me in a pitiful, disheveled state. His clothes were soaked with sweat, clinging tightly to his slender frame. Yet one part of his body stood out boldly, starkly contrasting his thin physique. He pleaded in confusion, "Sis, I feel awful." I quickly averted my gaze from that area, about to rush to his aid when a crowd burst through the door behind me. The unconscious Aiden was swiftly taken to the hospital by the Bow family. The pear soup Aiden had drunk had been drugged. That pear soup was brewed by me. Scornful, mocking eyes naturally fell upon me. No matter how I explained, no one believed me. By then, Shanzhou and I were already locked in a prolonged Cold War. Yet only Shanzhou stepped forward to shield me behind him. Frowning deeply, he said, "Arya Tao has no reason to do this." Claire Tao, dressed in an expensive gown, walked over and hugged me with a choke sob. "Sis, Mom and Dad said they won't kick you out. They'll even give you a share of the family assets. There's really no need for you to degrade yourself for money. Claire wore a pained expression of concern, yet between the lines, she was clearly implying that I had shamelessly drugged a wheelchair-bound young man just to cling to the Beau family's influence. At that moment, Sean-Jo loosened his tight grip on my hand. He glanced at me with a complicated expression. I called the police. I wanted to prove my innocence, but when the siren sounded, a servant stopped me in a corner of the garden. He rubbed his hands together. Miss, when will I get the payment we agreed on? I froze, and before I could speak, I looked up and saw Sean not far away. If you're fucking broke, why didn't you just ask me for money? Who gave you permission to stoop so low and seduce someone else? Do people like you have no sense of shame at all? His eyes were dark and cold as ice. I froze in place as if turned to ice, watching Claire Tao embrace Sean-Jo like soft spring water. Sister only fell so low because she lacked security. A sway. Let's forgive her. Sean-Jo gave me a deep, lingering look, then took Claire Tao's hand, leaving without a backward glance. In that moment, I understood profoundly. In their eyes, I could never be their equal. I carry the despised blood of the poor, so any shameless act from me would come as no surprise. Our kind are born lowly, just like now, though I've done nothing. Sean-Jo is convinced I'd stoop to any means for money by clinging to Aiden Beau. Aiden Beau has long cut ties with the Beau family. All your scheming is for nothing, like drawing water with a sieve. Sean-Jo shook off my hand, his eyes full of scorn. I let out a faint, indifferent, "Oh." Sean-Jo's expression darkened further. The glass door swung open, and a drenched, handsome young man spotted me instantly, his eyes lighting up. I was surprised. No umbrella? Aiden Beau shook his head, droplets from his hair splashing onto my face. His eyes darkened slightly. He averted his gaze as if embarrassed. Pursing his lips, he said, "Sis, I'm a bit thirsty. Could we have soup tonight?" Sean-Jo, standing nearby, crossed his arms and sneered. Since when did the young master of the Beau family develop a taste for being someone's lapdog? Aiden seemed to notice him only then, his clear black and white eyes widening in shock. "Sean-Jo, you're still alive?" I patted Aiden's arm. "Ignore him. Let's go." As if unwilling to let it go, Sean caught up in a few strides. "Are you that desperate? Do you even know this woman is carrying my child?" The corner of his mouth curled, his tone turning mocking. Or does the Beau family's young master just enjoy being a backup plan? With a sharp crack, my slap sent Sean's face jerking to the side. He slowly lifted his gaze, eyes filled with disbelief. "You hit me for this pretty boy." He reached out to grab me fiercely, but was blocked by the tall, slender Aiden Beau standing between us. The young man said slowly, "The Research Institute has taken out high value insurance on my personal safety. Which part of me are you planning to hit?" Sean-Jo's extended fist froze mid-air. Aiden Beau coughed lightly and smiled faintly at him. "You know, I've always been frail since childhood. If I can become a father painlessly, I'd be quite happy to." Sean-Jo's face turned pale with anger. Before he could act, I quickly pulled Aiden Beau to my side, pointing behind him. "Sean-Jo, your fiancé is here." Taking advantage of his turn back, I grabbed Aiden Beau and swiftly got into a taxi. Only when the hand in my palm moved did I realize I'd been holding Aiden Beau's hand the whole way without letting go. Sorry, I tend to clench my hands unconsciously when I'm deep in thought. As expected, when I let go, Aiden Beau's pale hand bore a frightening red mark. I sighed. The young master's skin is too delicate. After buying ointment from the pharmacy, Aiden Beau extended his hand. His obedient demeanor was like a ragdoll cat offering its tail to its owner. I resignedly applied the medicine for him. "Why were you so surprised earlier that Sean-Jo is still alive?" "Aiden Beau, he should have died from his own stupidity long ago." I looked up in astonishment, meeting Aiden Beau's innocent expression. "Sis, what's wrong?" Suppressing my strange emotions, I shook my head. "It's nothing. By the way, why did Sean-Jo say you've cut ties with the Beau family?" "Sis, what he said is true. I shouldn't pry into other people's family matters. But without the Bo family's protection, should I selfishly involve Aiden Bo in this? It's not too late to change the plan now. Sis, why haven't you asked me for help yet? What? The boy's eyes were clear, his smile as pure as a mountain spring. I know what you intend to do, sister. You need me, don't you? I shuddered, forgetting to breathe. He knew, so he knew all along. I wasn't taken to the police station over that incident. I heard Aiden Bo was in critical care all night. He was already frail, having just lost his legs in a car accident. And then he was given a potent drug. The Bo family had no choice but to take him abroad for treatment. Normally, the protective Bo family would have torn the Tao family apart. Yet the matter was quietly dropped. The Bo family didn't pursue it. They even publicly claimed it was an accident, Aiden's own health failing, unrelated to anyone else. All the traps and fabricated evidence set for me came to nothing. Locked in my room, I overheard my adoptive parents whispering when I sneaked out. A crooked stick will have a crooked shadow. That girl's father must have been no good either. They say daughters should keep their distance from their fathers as they grow older. Back then, Qinghua was already 12, yet that man still had her sit on the back of his motorcycle and hold him tight. Just goes to show what a lecherous scoundrel he was. Thankfully, we were prepared early on. The adoptive mother's icy voice was tinged with a trace of worry. We originally only intended to have him crippled, but he ended up dead. I'm terrified. What's there to be afraid of? The foster father snorted coldly. Old Mao keeps his mouth shut and won't spill anything. Besides, if he loses his life, it's his own bad luck and misfortune. What does that have to do with us? I tightly covered my mouth and ran back to my room in panic, the sweat on my back pouring down like a waterfall. Her palms repeatedly clenched and then relaxed. The hatred festering in my chest consumed me like a raging inferno. My biological father. I've met him. He sold breakfast at the school gate, greeting everyone with a cheerful smile. The school organized an anti-terror drill without his knowledge. While everyone cooperated by running outside, this man instead plunged into the crowd searching for his daughter. He always wore a clean apron, making it hard to notice the slightly worn-out undershirt beneath. But he cherished his wife, working non-stop at the breakfast stall while letting her leisurely handle the cash. He adored his daughter, enrolling Claire Tao in expensive tutoring classes and buying her the latest stationery within his means. My allowance was meager, so I could only afford the cheapest plain kanji from his stall. As bitter winds howled, he glanced at my thin coat. "Young lady, aren't you cold?" I shook my head, lying through my teeth. He took the kanji from my hands, poured it into a small electric pot, and smiled at me. "Let me warm it up for you. It'll feel cozier to eat." His wife nearby put away the cash, wiped her hands, and picked up a marinated egg. "Here, child, eat this." The eggs on the house. They didn't possess any earth-shattering power, yet they were the finest of ordinary people. Such folks were deceived by the Tao family couple for half their lives, only to meet their end. Every semblance of order in the world crumbled instantly in my heart. I will make these people pay, even if it meant a moth flying into the flame. The old Mao, Tao's father mentioned, was Mao Qingsheng, now the highest ranking leader of the company's logistics security team. During this period, I interacted with the Andes in the logistics group, occasionally lending a helpful hand with office cleaning. The listening device placed in Mao Qingsheng's office proved effective. It turned out he had been blackmailing Tao's father over that incident for years. His demands weren't huge, just 10 or 20,000 at a time, but he'd come back for more as soon as it ran out. Tao's father, worn down by the harassment, finally erupted into a phone argument with him. Mao Qingsheng gloated, "Boss, back when you told me to ruin Yongkin for good, I kept a recording. My life's worthless anyway. But are you really willing to risk your fortune and go down with me? Evil begets evil." Tao's father had no choice but to grit his teeth and endure the extortion. With the intercepted evidence, Tao's father would surely face legal consequences once the police were involved. But this was far from enough. A joint venture between the Tao and Zhou families had set up a factory in Seaside Town, where I had been undercover for 3 years. The Tao family's heavily promoted maternal and infant product likely uses banned ingredients, but confirming this requires more advanced experimental data analysis. The Zhou and Tao families are industry leaders with deeply intertwined connections in capital city. I didn't dare take the risk. Right then, I noticed Aiden Bo's name mentioned in the second Generation Heirs chat group. He works at the Research Institute, capable of helping me analyze the ingredients while avoiding the Tao family surveillance. Coming from the Bo family, he fears no threats from others. He was a perfect pawn. I tracked down the servant who framed me with false testimony and used the money Claire Tao gave me to make him talk. I could present the truth to Aiden Bo and escalate the conflict between the Bo and Tao families. But now, before I even revealed my bargaining chip, he had already made a promise. I lower my head. "I'm sorry. No need to apologize," he said with a gentle smile. "They're our common enemy, aren't they?" The clear post. Rain breeze carried the young man's uneasy whisper. "Sister, can I take you out to dinner again tomorrow?" The next day at work, the receptionist informed me I'd been fired. As I stood bewildered, a large hand abruptly yanked me into the stairwell. It was Sean Zhou. His brazen gaze swept over my face. My neck then trailed downward, looking so rough. "Where's your precious young master of the Bo family?" I swiftly slapped him across the face, harder than yesterday's strike. Sean Zhou's eyes burned crimson. He worked his jaw, then suddenly grinned with a recklessly defiant expression, protecting him so fiercely. "Have you already slept with him? A cripple. Could he even satisfy you in bed?" I turned to leave, but he violently pulled me into his embrace. Despite my punches and kicks, he only held me tighter. "I quit your job for you. I bought a villa in the neighboring city. I'll visit you and the child often from now on." I stopped struggling. "What do you mean? Keeping a mistress in a golden cage?" Noticing the mockery in my eyes, he averted his gaze slightly. "I won't let Claire Tao disturb you." His composed tone made it sound like a favor bestowed upon me. Yes, Sean Zhou, arrogant and disdainful. Even this one stubborn, awkward concession was enough to make me overwhelmingly grateful. I couldn't help but laugh. "Sean, you were much cuter when you were acting like a fool." After stepping out of the stairwell, I took a deep breath. I clipped a segment of the earlier recording and sent it to Claire Tao. Sean didn't pester me anymore. On the day of the abortion procedure, no one sent by Sean came to pick me up. I had already made plans with Aiden Bo. Aiden was dressed as usual, white shirt, black pants, and a stiff looking black backpack. Thinking of his physical condition, I hooked his bag and slung it over my shoulder. The young man paused in surprise, then obediently followed behind me. After a while, he stepped forward and took the bag back. His jade, like earlobes, flushed red. "Sis, I'm actually not that weak." We spent the day at a countryside farm stay. In the evening, I received a call from Sean Zhou. He found out from the hospital that I hadn't gone through with the surgery. "Arya," his voice low and magnetic as he called my name, as if certain I couldn't let go of my feelings for him. He said gently with a smile, "Wait for me, wait for him." Ridiculous. I was never pregnant with Sean Zhou's child. Back then, my tearful, heartfelt explanations fell on deaf ears. Yet now he believes this casual lie without question. A few days later, I received a wedding invitation sent by Claire Tao's people. Her wedding with Sean Zhou was moved up, scheduled for next week. The day I'd been waiting for had finally arrived. On the wedding day, Claire Tao watched as her parents were taken away by the police. Tax evasion, suspected hiring of hitmen, using banned ingredients in products. The scene descended into chaos. The bride wept pitifully, begging her new husband to save her parents. But soon after, Sean Zhou was also taken in for questioning. The police had received on-site videos of the Tao factory extracting prohibited raw materials. In every clip, Sean Zhou's voice could be heard. Only then did Sean realize with dread. Over 2 years ago, Arya Tao had gifted him a cheap watch, which he treasured and wore daily to his factory shifts. It turned out the watch contained a hidden camera. Arya had used him. Each step out of the police station felt like treading on a rope about to snap. The moment he looked up and saw Arya standing there, his tangled, Suffocating emotions peaked. Though 1,000 questions swirled in his mind, all Sean could manage was a strained utterance. For these 3 years, were you just acting? Arya smiled more beautifully than ever before. She said, Sean, if I were you, I'd be more concerned about another question right now. I told the factory manager about your identity. They assumed you were the young master sent for training, which is why you had access to core secrets. But why? In all these 3 long years, has your father or your fiancé never once come looking for you? Sean's expression shifted dramatically. A storm of emotions churned in his chest. He stared blankly at the girl sneering contemptuously before him, yet found this face far more vivid than the soft, timid one etched in his memory, as if she were glowing from within. Sean stumbled home in a daze. Claire Tao learned that Sean had leaked the evidence. Unsurprisingly, her parents would face prison, and the company would crumble. Gone was her delicate, wilting demeanor as she coldly glared at Sean. He paid no mind, focused only on confirming one thing. You've known my whereabouts all along, haven't you? His father guiltily averted his gaze. Sean understood. He clenched his fists, feeling powerless and lost. Why? Claire Tao tore off her veil, her eyes flashing with what might have been scorn or regret. Sean, you're even more useless than your illegitimate half-brother. Shut your mouth. Sean's father snapped angrily. Uncle Joe, don't forget you're also responsible for that project. If anything happens to my parents, you won't escape unscathed either. Mr. Joe was absolutely livid. The two argued right in front of the servants, like primitive beings stripped of all dignity and decorum. A corner of their gilded veil was lifted, revealing the putrid, stinking souls beneath. Sean closed his eyes, belatedly struck by an absurd thought. It felt as if he had lost a treasure that belonged to him. Claire Tao's parents were sentenced, and, after paying hefty fines, she took over the company. She lacked the strength to fight those cunning old foxes, and was quickly defeated. Surrounded by jackals, the empire her father had built over half his life was completely carved up. Even in its decline, the Tao family had some accumulated wealth. Claire wouldn't be left with nothing, but for Claire Tao, accustomed to a life of luxury, her current state was no different from her adoptive parents' past struggles. She had to fight hard just to survive, scrambling and struggling to stay afloat in hardship. The Zhou family was dragged into the Tao family's troubles, suffering significant losses as well. What troubled Mr. Zhou the most was the disappearance of his only son once again. He was getting older, and doctors said he couldn't have more children. So, even though he didn't particularly like this son, after his illegitimate son passed away, he brought Sean back. At worst, he could focus on nurturing his grandson in the future. But those plans fell through. This time, no one knew where Sean had gone. Over a month later, Sean stopped me outside my rental apartment. He had grown terribly thin, just like when he appeared by the seaside over 3 years ago. He looked haggard, worn out, and utterly disheveled. He remembered everything. Arya, He opened his mouth to speak, then slowly let his arm drop. The child, that was a lie too, wasn't it? Yes. He nodded. That's good. Sean stared at me for a long time. Outside, heavy snow began to fall. Pale snowflakes melted on his eyelashes, looking like tears silently streaming down. His once proud spine was no longer straight, his voice trembling. Can you forgive me one more time? I remained silent. He laughed self-deprecatingly. I understand. He turned to leave, pausing after a few steps. Aidenbo's car. Are you two together now? My gaze followed his to the silver sedan I saw every day. Does Aidenbo live here too? Sean's eyes were bloodshot. Do you know why I forbade you from approaching Aidenbo in high school? His tone carried inexplicable jealousy and resentment. I saw him secretly hide your photo, pervertedly kissing Jasmine buds your fingers had touched. I knew you earlier than him. I had you first. Why did it end like this? The howling winter wind couldn't swallow his bitterness. Sean, because you're despicable. The man staggered, the forced smile on his face gradually vanishing completely. Sparse, heavy snow covered the footprints he had left on his way here. the arrogant, stubborn youth of his younger days, and infatuated, obedient man of the past 3 years, were all completely erased from my life in this moment. Ever since Tao's father was imprisoned, Aiden Bo never sought me out again. I thought our cooperation had ended, and there was no further need for us to meet. I never expected him to follow me and move into the rental apartment, and he did it quietly, perfectly avoiding any chance of running into me. He was absolutely doing it on purpose. This apartment was cheap, but the heating in winter was terrible. How could someone like him, raised as a young master, endure such conditions? Angrily, I knocked on his door, meeting the young man's anxious, evasive gaze. "Doesn't your research institute provide dormitories?" He looked like a stray cat being chased away. His instinct wasn't to bear sharp claws, but to flee in panic. "I'll move out as soon as possible. Sis, please don't be angry." His voice was barely audible. Every moment since we met replayed in my mind like a film on loop. Shanzhou roared with unwillingness. It finally froze on the young man's lost, dark eyes. "Aiden Bo, do you, perhaps like me?" He abruptly lifted his head, resembling a little robot lagging from a virus. It's fine." I frowned. It was different from all the answers I had imagined. "What does this mean?" The robot's dim eyes gained a bit more sparkle. "Sister, is there something else you need me to do?" "I can do anything." He seemed particularly enthusiastic about collaborating with me, even though the compensation he received wasn't substantial. Why is that? The question I'd been pondering repeatedly seemed to have an answer at this moment. I watched him quietly. A blush crept up the young man's ears, red as if dyed by the bright red couplets at the door. I reached out and touched it. "So hot." He seemed startled, his ears twitching slightly. His eyes glistened with a hint of moisture, yet his hands still clung to the doorframe, lips pressed together as he obediently watched me. I don't know where the courage came from, but I pushed the slender Aiden Bow against the cabinet. "There is indeed something I need your help with." "I'm going all in." Gritting my teeth, I said, "I need you to like me. Can you do that?" He seemed frozen, not moving a muscle. Silence is equivalent to rejection. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, I was about to pull back when my wrist was suddenly gently grasped. I was pulled into his embrace. The distance was even closer than before. "Sis." Aiden Bow's voice was hoarse, his gaze drifting, offering no answer. I numbly glanced downward. I should have already received the most honest answer. After Aiden Bow's car accident, he had his parents transfer him to another school. In an unfamiliar city and campus, everyone looked at him with a mix of curiosity, disdain, and fear. It was fine. At least it was better than a crowd gathering around his amputated leg, offering insincere sympathy. He loathed his own broken body just as much. He rejected the doctor's suggestion to get a prosthetic limb. There was no need. It was already ruined beyond repair. Aiden Bow knew Arya Tao was approaching him on her parents' orders. She was so weak, yet the way she stubbornly shielded him was almost laughable. But Aiden couldn't help thinking how lucky someone must be to have her protection. He felt a twinge of jealousy toward Shanzhou. At first, he wished Arya would despise and avoid him like everyone else. Later, he silently longed for her to glance his way just once more. A dark desire grew in his damp heart to possess her completely. So Aiden still boldly exposed his amputated leg. This way, he could constantly remind himself he wasn't worthy. Aiden Bow was lucid for a few brief minutes before being wheeled into the emergency room. For the first time, he begged his parents for one thing: don't pursue it. Arya Tao is innocent. With his broken body, even if he schemed, he wasn't fit to catch the girl's eye. His parents' anger was hard to quell. So what? The Tao family still owes us an explanation. Aiden covered his eyes. You don't understand. Her life at the Tao family is already difficult. His parents agreed. In exchange, Aiden had to study and receive treatment abroad and get fitted with that detestable prosthetic. His parents wore expressions of extreme vigilance, as if terrified he might have the slightest connection to the Tao family again. You're overthinking it. Aiden almost felt like laughing. How could a cripple like him have the confidence to stand beside his sister? Later, he insisted on returning to the country. His parents were cold, knowing smiles, Didn't you say she wasn't interested in you? Why go back then? Over the years, Aiden Bowe had persisted with exercise, his physique now robust like any healthy man should be. Few knew that beneath his trousers lay a cold, unsightly prosthetic leg, but he knew it well himself. Returning wasn't about winning the girl's affection, as his parents assumed. She needed him, so he ought to be there. He unlocked his heart's box, letting suppressed fondness and passion rush toward her. It was a result Aiden Bowe deliberately allowed. Only by sensing his affection could she feel more at ease using him. Below his damaged knee, flesh and blood would never grow again, nor did he dare hope for anything more. When their cooperation ended, Aiden Bowe tactfully withdrew, just like in high school, hiding in corners to steal glances at her. He never expected to be discovered. "Do you like me?" The question startled him so much his heart nearly stopped. Being entangled with such a wretched cripple like him must be a disgrace. Yet denying it seemed impossible. He didn't want to lie to her, nor let his hidden feelings become her burden, until she said, "I need you to like me. Can you do that?" Aiden Bowe's head spun. He gritted his teeth and refused to answer, but a certain uncooperative part of him defied his command. Greeting her with eager, fierce enthusiasm, Aiden closed his eyes, realizing it was over. She would never believe his well-behaved, harmless facade again. The next second, Aiden's eyes widened, his breath quickening. He stared in disbelief at the hand the girl had wrapped around his. Sis, Sean Zhou, went for treatment at the hospital Aiden had recommended. At first, he didn't believe Aiden could be so kind-hearted. After all, the young man wore two faces, one in public, another in private. He hid all his claws around Arya Tao, docile as a kitten. Facing Sean, Aiden curled his lips with a wicked smirk. "Of course, out of kindness. Wanted to see how you'd manage to get yourself killed by sheer stupidity." Sean Zhou tried hard not to dwell on the overwhelming malice and mockery in his smile. He just wanted to quickly recover his lost memories. After 3 treatments, he remembered everything. The truth flooded his mind like a tide, and he finally understood what Aiden Bowe's smile meant. The truth. The mistress and illegitimate son his father brought home shattered all the devotion and effort his mother had poured into their marriage. Driven to depression by her husband, she overdosed on pills and took her own life. The girl he adored sweetly smiled as she threw herself into the arms of the illegitimate son. The fair, whether friends who once followed him around now became the illegitimate son's yes. Men, his mother's death, his father's indifference, his friend's betrayal. The whole world had abandoned him. Sean Zhou resolutely left the home he had come to loathe deeply. He swore he would never return. After that, he lost his memory and ended up wandering by the seaside. And then, Sean Zhou still took over his father's business. He squandered recklessly, consumed by a mad desire to drag the Zhou family down with him. He spared no effort in targeting Claire Tao, snatching her projects, poaching her people, even though they still hadn't divorced yet. It didn't matter anymore. Claire Tao lashed out at him with vicious sarcasm. "You don't actually think that the more you target me, the more it proves your devotion to Arya Tao, do you?" "Sean Zhou, you're a fucking idiot. You hate our Tao family for not treating Arya well enough. But what about you? Aren't you the one who failed her?" With a twisted expression, Claire Tao dragged up the past. She was the one who drugged Aiden Bowe, because Tao's father wanted to offer Arya Tao to Aiden Bowe. Whether as a marriage alliance or a plaything, it didn't matter. But she didn't want Arya Tao to climb into the Bowe family's favor. She wanted Arya Tao to be despised by Aiden Bowe. Even a cripple she looked down on must never admire Arya. Sean Zhou stared blankly, lost in thought. It turned out everyone was tacitly scheming, and only he was kept in the dark. After over a decade together, had he ever truly given Arya Tao his trust? Sean Zhou remained silent, continuing his methods of retaliating against the Tao family. At first, he didn't think he loved Arya that much, but later, he needed medication to fall asleep every night. His dreams were filled with those 3 years by the seaside with Arya. They walked barefoot along the beach. Arya would pinch his leg with a crab. They lay together on the cottage sofa, watching TV. Arya, wrapped in a blanket and nestled against his chest, crunched on potato chips, crumbs scattered across Sean's chest. They'd laugh and playfully wrestle. Back then, even her slaps made him happy. The seaside weather was always clear and sunny, but when he woke, rain poured heavily outside the window. His heart felt hollow, as if a piece of flesh had been carved out. Arya had successfully taken revenge on everyone who had hurt her. Even if he cast aside all dignity now, he was no longer worthy of begging for her forgiveness. Shanzhou silently watched every aspect of Arya Tao's life, watching the detested Aiden Bo move into her home, seeing the girl laugh as she ruffled the young man's hair, gently straightening his collar. They held hands under the sunlight. It was blindingly painful to see. Sean realized his current voyeuristic behavior was no different from the perverted youth he once despised. He had taken his place. Everyone in the company noticed the newly appointed President Zhou growing increasingly gloomy. Years later, on Arya's wedding day, Sean naturally received no invitation. Every mall screen in Capital City displayed a repeating message against a white background with black text. Congratulations on escaping hardship towards Spring Mountains. Sean thought she would surely guess it was from him. On this important day of her life, wearing her wedding dress, it would be enough if she remembered him even for a moment. But shortly after, his assistant reported that all the screens had been taken down, replaced with enormous pink QR codes. Skin wants to randomly draw a red envelope. The assistant cautiously explained. The Bo family changed it, a grand gesture. Estimated they poured in nearly 100 million. He didn't continue, because Shanzhou had already scanned the code and saw a row of glaring pink text beneath the red envelope. The bride and groom invite everyone to enjoy wedding sweets.